What's going on, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens? This is True for Shield's Rest, and we're going to be talking Daggerheart rules. So today, I figured we're going to start a new series that goes through all the Daggerheart rules for 1.5 open beta. Now, you can grab the manuscript off of the daggerheart.com and just download everything. What you're going to need is that manuscript, and that's going to be what we're going through. So we're going to be starting on page 94, and the idea here is that I want to be able to help you cut through some of that confusion, especially if you've never played a tabletop RPG before, but more so if you haven't played it with this particular narrative dice idea. Now, the Genesis system has used this narrative dice idea for a long time, and I really enjoy the narrative dice system. I think they do a great job with it. But the thing is that's difficult to understand if you don't have the experience and you don't have anybody mentoring you on how to what to do with that. Now, Daggerheart has streamlined it into just 2 dice. Instead of a full-on dice pool, you just have 2 dice, and that's the Duality Dice. Now, the Duality Dice is going to be the thing that you use as a player for all your rolls, every single one of them. To attack, when you got to make a strength roll, when you have to do a knowledge check of some kind, that you're going to be rolling your 2d12. So make sure you have 2 differentiating colors for your d12s, like 1 green and 1 purple, something to that effect. Whatever you choose is whatever you choose, but just know which one is which, because when you roll, you're going to roll them together and then you're going to say which one is higher. So let's say, for instance, I roll a 13 with my fear dice being higher. That is a 13 with fear. Now let's say I roll a 13 but my hope dice is higher. That's going to be a 13 with hope. And that's essentially what you're going to tell your GM, and he or she is going to go through and let you know what exactly happens. So what that means, though, for you as a player and for even you as a new GM, what that means is having a 13 with hope. The 13 doesn't matter so much as whatever the difficulty is, and your GM's going to tell you whether you succeed or not. As a GM, it's important to set your difficulty for whatever the roll is to decide whether that individual succeeds or not. Now, what that means with hope, let's say that is a success. Let's say a 13 with hope is a success. That means that not only do they succeed, but you as a player grab a hope for your character. And on top of that, as a GM, think about, okay, how can I create a positive spin off of not only the success, but how can I create something even more positive because they rolled with hope? That's the entire point. So if they roll with fear, there's a consequence. And that same goes for whether they fail with hope or fail with fear. If they fail with hope, find a way to make that positive. If they fail with fear, find a way to make that detrimental. Not only do they fail, but man, they really fail. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Now, to quickly cover critical success, because there is a critical success. There's not a critical failure. There's no natural 1 situation. However, there is a critical success in Daggerheart. And the idea is when you roll 2 numbers of the exact same number. So if you roll a 1 and a 1, it could be a 2 and a 2, it could be an 8 and an 8. Doesn't matter. As long as you roll the exact same number on both dice, that is considered a critical success. And what happens is not only do you gain a hope, but you also clear a stress, and you succeed at whatever it is that you set out to do. So they try to make it really a critical success, not just like you do it and you really do it, but you really do whatever it is that you're doing. So let's say you're lock picking a door and you're trying to get through this thing and you roll a critical success. You now have not only a hope at your disposal, but you also clear stress if you even have a stress that's been marked up at all. And then you not only get through it, but maybe you get through it so quietly and so adept that you've left no trace of you lock-picking this thing. And when you open the door, there's not even that creak or anything. It's just smooth, even if it's an old rusty door. Something like that, okay? Now let's still use that analogy for if you fail with fear. Failing with fear now means not only did you fail to lockpick the door, but now you probably made a large sound, or as a GM, you don't have to tell your players this, but maybe if they are failing at their lockpicking, yes, they don't get through the door, but With fear, maybe somebody sees them. Somebody who's watching and they're quiet and nobody notices that individual that sees them. And then that person goes off and grabs the local guard or grabs somebody that's kind of the big burly dude in town that can come through and hopefully stop the players, right? And create a little more strife, a little bit more of an interesting situation instead of it just being them going through a door. Now it's they fail to lockpick a door. They still probably have another attempt, but now they're dealing with a possible group of people coming after them. You don't always have to immediately tell your players what's going on with that fear. So if they fail with fear, make it interesting. Now, if they fail with hope, that's a different thing entirely. Now they just don't get through the door, but maybe now they understand the lock a little bit better. So now they can roll with advantage, or maybe not necessarily advantage, but you make it a D4 that they can add to their roll. So hopefully they have a better chance of getting through there, right? So that's kind of the idea there. Now, if they fail with fear, if they succeed with fear, maybe at that point you can have them. Maybe you can have them not only get through the door, but they've left a trace. Or maybe they did it pretty loudly, like they were really fiddling around in there and alerted whoever's on the other side that somebody's now coming through that door. Now, if they succeed with hope, then they did it. Maybe they did it quietly, or it depends on the context. That's the entire point of this. It depends on the context in terms of what happens. So you as a GM need to be paying attention to what is going on around the players, what's going on around those characters in that scene. So it could be a tense moment where people are coming. Now they're stalled, but that fear could drive them a little bit closer than what they would have been. So instead of, let's say, they get 3 attempts, now they only have 2 attempts. That second attempt now is crucial that they get through that door. Otherwise, they're going to have to deal with whatever combat's about to happen there. There's a lot of ways you can go about it, but that's the thing. You need to be present in the situation. You need to understand the context surrounding it, and that's how you're going to be able to decide how to use that hope, how to use that fear. Now, as a player, my encouragement to you is to understand how that could possibly work and understand how your character might utilize that hope, might utilize that fear. Because let's say your character is particularly clumsy. So with the fear, maybe you accidentally drop your lockpicking set and it clatters onto the ground. Could be something as simple as that is used for the fear. For the hope, it could be something as simple as you just do so really quietly. It could be more about the fact that now there's no damage or anything on your locks. On your lockpick, you left no trace at all whatsoever. There's plenty of ways that you can do that. And I, as a player, would offer that up to my GM if I thought of something that particularly made sense for my character. So that way the GM's not always doing this. The point of this game is for it to be a nice back and forth between the player and the GM. The entire point of this. So utilize that. Leverage that a bit, okay? So let's get into the hope and the fear specifically. So as a GM, you get to utilize fear. And you can activate your adversaries this way. You can use their fear features this way, which you'll see in their stat blocks. You can basically use it to add on adversaries. So instead of like 5 bandits, now there's 6 bandits because they just generated so much fear throughout this that you're able to, spend the fear points in that sort of way. Or maybe there was so much fear that you were able to spend it on, say, a bandit brute of some kind. Somebody that's a little bit heavier hitting, just to make it that much more dangerous for your players. You could totally do that. Or you could replace one of the bandits out of that 5 with that brute and not only spend the fear tokens, but also remove one of the adversaries, so it makes it a little bit more even. Plenty of ways that you can go about it. But again, just do what makes sense. Really and truly, all this comes down to when you're determining this stuff, go with what makes sense. Go with what you think would work in this situation. It's not always going to be the right answer. No one has the right answer at all times. So this is why we have success with fear, and this is why we have failure with hope. Because no one fully succeeds at something, and no one fully fails at something. A lot of times you learn through failure. That's what the hope is supposed to mean. A lot of times we get eaten up by the fact that we didn't succeed as we didn't do as well as we thought we would. Sometimes that can get to us. There's a lot of things that is just very basic about succeeding with hope or succeeding with fear, failure with hope, failure with fear, that should just make sense and narrative sense within that moment, like I said earlier. So now when you're using that fear, use it to enhance the story and use it to enhance the encounters that your players get into, whether that is battle, whether that is a conversation. We forget so easily that conversations can go badly really quickly, but at the same time, they can go really well when we least expect it. Sometimes we say things that resonate with people that we don't think would resonate with them, and all of a sudden we've changed their entire perspective. Think about conversations in that very dynamic sort of way. So as a GM, you've got a lot on you when it comes to playing within the Daggerheart system. But once you get used to it and you understand it, it actually gets really easy and it's basically second nature. I've had the benefit of playing the Genesis system for a while and have had a lot of experience there where I'm dealing with a lot more difficult roles than what Genesis has. They have a very streamlined approach to this. And you can take a streamlined approach to the results as well because of that. So enjoy it, Now, as a player and you've got hope, this is where you get to basically have the most fun because hope is going to fuel your ability to help your allies. It's going to fuel your abilities and cards, different spells and such. And you'll see that on the actual printed text. You'll see spend a hope to activate this, And then you can also do this. You can also use your hope for your experiences, the things that you basically created during character creation for your character's background, whether that's something like blacksmithing or they know a guy who knows a guy, and they can utilize that experience to pull upon later as long as you spend a hope to do so. So it's a fluid resource. Both fear and hope are fluid resources that should be utilized almost at any given moment that you're able to. Now, as a player, I'd say have a small reserve of hope, so that way you can utilize it in case combat comes out of nowhere. And as a GM, in case you're planning on combat, keep a little bit of fear, so that way you can activate your adversaries, especially if you know it's coming. Or maybe there's an impromptu encounter that you're planning here because they've generated so much fear, so now here comes a just random encounter. Do that and hold on to some of that fear, so that way you can activate your adversaries. But that's the simplistic way of going about it. That's how you use fear. That's how you use hope. That's what the duality dice are. Those are the different results that you could possibly get. So I hope this helped, and I hope this was informative for you. I hope this makes it a little easier getting into the Daggerheart system, because it's a very simple system, and you just have to get through that fog of confusion at first. But once you reach that understanding with how the mechanics work, everything's easy. Even you could almost throw out all the other mechanics. As long as you understand the duality dice, you can come up with whatever you want on the fly. And that's another thing. I want you to realize that you shouldn't get too far in the weeds when it comes to the rule book. Yes, read it, but at the same time, if you forget in the moment while the game is happening, don't worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Just come up with what makes sense. And you're going to learn through trial by fire. You're going to learn whether that was a good decision or a bad decision. And then learn from that, get into the rule book afterwards and see what should have happened. Own up to your players for that. Just let them know, hey guys, I made the wrong decision. This is how it's supposed to be. This is what I went with. It made sense at the time, but now that I've read it, this is what it's supposed to be. I can't imagine any group is going to think that you're stupid for not having looked into the rule book in the moment. Because play just needs to keep going. Keep play going. Make it flow. Okay, that's the entire point of this, is to make it flow. So yeah, I love the narrative dice, and I do enjoy this system. It's a good system, and I think with a little bit of understanding with the rules, you can tie in anything you want to into this system. And you're going to have a nice streamlined play that's going to be basically enabling you to have a more narrative style with streamlined combat. And if that's what you want, stick with me, because we're going to be going through all of the mechanics, so that way you have an easier time pulling them out of thin air. the great thing is you're not going to be going through the rule book right now. You know, you can just think on what makes sense and you're good. So, anywho, I've got a bunch more to come. I'm going to be getting back in the order within the rule book so that way you can follow along from page 93 instead of 94, and then we'll get this going. So, all right, so that's it for Duality Dice. We'll get into the rest of the core mechanics like movements and actions in the next video. We're going to go ahead and end this here. We want to make this quick. I wanted this to be as streamlined as possible for you guys. Hopefully I didn't go on too much of a tangent with this, but Duality Dice is complicated enough yet simplistic enough that there needs to be some clearing of that confusion, and then you come to just the light that is. So, but yeah, it's great. So can't wait for the next one. Be on the lookout for that. So please subscribe, like the video, comment down below if you have any questions, if I might have missed something, or if you're still confused about something. I check the comments on a daily basis. So I want to make sure that you have all the tools you need so that way you can play this game with ease. And you can pick it up even as a new player or a new GM and not have any issues. So look forward to the rest of the videos because we're going to be breaking down all the rules, every single one of them, little bit by little bit. It's not all happening at once, but we're going to get there. So stick with us, and I'll see you in the next one.